All right, we're ready to continue our press conferences, and we're now joined by University of Michigan head coach Dusty May. We'll ask Coach May to make an opening comment, and then we will take your questions. Again, please give your name and affiliation before questions. With that, Coach, we'll open it for an opening comment.
It's an honor to be back in the Final Four representing University of Michigan in the Big Ten Conference with a group that is very well deserving, and we're just excited to still be one of 4 teams still standing.
Thank you, Coach. If you have a question, Bridget, Isabella, Caitlin, and Tucker have a microphone, and we'll start, Coach, over on the back, on the right-hand side, towards the back.
Dusty, Alec Giannakopoulos with Wood TV in Grand Rapids. I asked Charlie about your time in high school. He mentioned a buzz cut. Being here in Indianapolis, does this bring back any memories, and how special is it to have a Final Four not so far from where you grew up?
Well, it's special simply being here. It's a little bit overwhelming with friends and families and old teachers and whatnot. But it's a full circle moment. I still remember as a junior, senior manager when the Final Four was here in Indianapolis, myself and all of us managers that wanted to find a way in coaching in any capacity would pile in a car and just get out and hopefully bump into any coach and find a way to make an impression, obviously using the Coach Knight badge to get in any conversation. And so just a full circle moment from chasing around coaches trying to beg for a GA spot to be back here with this team is it's surreal.
Coach, we'll stay on this right side. Second row.
Dusty, Chris Ballas with the Wolverine on 3. Just talk about the matchup with Arizona and your bigs versus their bigs and how critical that's obviously going to be.
Well, we feel like we're built in a similar fashion as Arizona, and I'll begin with the veterans on both teams and how they've taken this off the bench role and they've impacted winning almost every game. I just see so many similarities with the intangibles and the team character of both of us, and then obviously when you factor in the size, and both teams get a lot of credit for how good our front lines are, but there's some great guards and very intelligent basketball being played by both teams, and so when we watch them, we see ourselves, other than a few stylistic differences, we see a lot of ourselves in them, and it's going to be a battle. We believe it's going to be won in the 39th or 40th minute of this game.
Coach, we'll go over to our left-hand side, second row.
Coach Anthony Broom, the Wolverine. Yaxel has found a different gear over these last few weekends of the tournament. How long do you think it took him to realize that he was a great player?
It took him a while, and I think our guys have constantly reminded him he's so unselfish. He's so, I don't know how to say it, just he wants to be one of the guys. And they've encouraged him to be more aggressive, to shoot more, to hunt some more individual accolades all year. And he simply refused because he didn't care about any of those things. And so it's allowed us to have a real selfless group, and it's improved our environment because he's been so unselfish. But I don't think he still has no idea how good he is.
Coach, we'll go in front of me, about 4 rows back, just right here.
Yeah, Dusty, Kevin Sweeney, Sports Illustrated. I think last weekend you referred to Merez and Elliott as psycho competitors. There's a lot of those guys on your team, and I know you guys play more games in practice than a lot of groups. I guess, what has that competitiveness looked like on a day-to-day basis in your practice gym, and how has it kind of raised the level that your team competes at getting deep into the tournament?
Well, all season, when we've went starters versus reserves, the reserves have held their own. And then we start mixing in the lineups where you have a couple of our all-league guys going against a couple of the all-league guys on another team. It's just been a really healthy, competitive environment all year, and it's part. I think it's a big part of our success and our improvement throughout the season. Because if you don't have 10 guys out there battling, pushing each other to get better, and then you can get a little bit stagnant and whatnot. But the depth of our roster certainly helped our practice habits.
Coach, we'll go over here on the right-hand side.
Carlos Linares, Detroit Free Press. Dusty, you're not at the ultimate goal. I'm sure you want to win 2 more games, but just knowing that next year, no matter what happens, you're going to be hanging a Final Four banner, maybe more, at Chrysler. That's a big moment. A lot of players are already looking forward to that. Coming back next year, coming back in 20 years, to celebrate that. What was the reception like going back to school after the Elite Eight and going back and getting from the campus, from boosters, from alumni, from fans, whatever it might be?
To be honest, we've tried to keep it as business as possible and limit all those outside distractions and stay busy. We gave our guys a day and a half off, essentially. We had 2 days off of organized practice, but on day 2, we lifted. We had an Arizona overview, and we did individual workouts and did some things that we thought might prepare us to play in the dome and things like that. But to be honest, it felt a lot different than it did at FAU. This felt like something our guys expected, and even our fan base, it felt like they expected a little bit as well, and so did I, because of the guys we have in wearing the Michigan jerseys. So all along, it's just kind of felt like mission has not been accomplished yet.
Okay, we're going to go over here on our left, Caitlin. Left.
Hey, Dusty, John Neal, Detroit News. When and how did the Big Goof nickname come up for Addae? And I guess how important has it been for him to feel comfortable being himself to get the most out of him for you as a coach this year?
But I think it's very important that all of our guys are. I'll begin with, in our building, we take pride in psychological safety. And we want all these guys to be who they are. Now, when other people are counting on us to do a job, then we have to do it in a certain way with a level of intensity and professionalism and whatnot. But when we're not doing that job, we want these guys to enjoy each other's company, to have fun, and be who they are. And he's always goofing around, and his personality. I say that Elliot and Merez are psychos, and Yax is laughing and cutting up, and he's silly, and Addai's silly, and Roddy's serious, and Namari's serious. So you have all these unique personalities. We want them to be themselves. And I date myself with my staff. I'm older than all those guys, but Reno 911, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lieutenant Dangle. And so, yes, I hear some laughter. So there was one day Addai made a play, and he was kind of just being silly on the court, and it was the same day that I had sent the staff of Lieutenant Dangle goofing in his new boots. So I think it was Coach Church said he's just goofing, and so he just immediately became the big goof.
All right, we'll stay in the center section, fourth row. Go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Kyle Felcher with CNN Sports. Obviously, you've been very successful building this team through the transfer portal in your 2 years here. What does this run mean for building something that's sustainable, long-term success? How does getting to a Final Four help with what you're trying to build at Michigan?
Well, I want to give our team last year a lot of credit for the way those guys played, and a couple of them left, a couple of them stayed, a couple of them went to the NBA. But those guys, when you move up, there's a lot of questions. When you go from low major to high major, whatever, there are a lot of questions. And when you're recruiting against that every day. And when you haven't had a guy drafted in the first round, you're recruiting against that every day. There's just certain things that you're always recruiting against. And last year's team gave us an identity that this is the way we're going to play. I think when you turned on the TV, our guys, the way they shared the ball, the way they cared for each other, how connected they were as a group on the court, showed that the guys we're recruiting now. And then you look at the way Vlad and Danny as 2 7-footers played. If you're a big guy that wants to play a certain way, then seeing what those guys did made us a very attractive option for them. So recruiting wasn't near as difficult last year as it was the first year. And hopefully each year, as recruiting becomes more niche and we have an identity and a brand, that people choose us. And I think that's, we talk about the transfer portal and all this other stuff. I think now more than ever, we used to choose players and we used to convince them to come play for us, whether it's because we were showering them with attention or we showed them more love or we'd simply been recruiting them longer. In our opinion, we always thought those were pretty shallow reasons to choose a university because a coach came to more 6 a.m. workouts, things like that. And now the players, and each coach may have a different opinion, but the players are choosing us. And when we make contact with the player, the first thing they do is slide into the DMs and the messages of all of our players that we coach currently and the players that we've coached in the past. And they do more homework and intel on us than we do on them. And so I know that's spinning in a number of different directions, but just recruiting's changed so much. And I'm going to echo Coach Barnes from Tennessee last week. It's not that bad. We used to recruit guys for 3 years and spend $80,000, $100,000 200 man hours away from our families begging these 15 to 18-year-olds to come play at our university, and then they decide to go in another direction, and you just think of all the time and resources you've wasted. And so recruiting has definitely been streamlined, and it's much more efficient than it's ever been.
Okay, we'll go over to the far side on the right.
Hey, Dusty. Greg Doyle with Indianapolis Star. Good to see you. When you went running around the Final Four in 2000, can you name a couple of the student managers that were with you? A, and B, is that how you got the job at USC? Did you run into Indy coaches downtown Indy?
No, actually, it was Matt Babrick who got on at Stanford right away. It was Dan Block who got on at Indiana but decided to go the family route, and he'll be at these games. And actually, Dane Fife is a glorified manager. He was with us, and he was the most annoying of the bunch. And then Joe Pasternak was with us, and he was kind of the ringleader of that circus. No, the USC job, I still say to this day, Henry Bibby was a coach in the CBA. And he's sitting on the road recruiting, talking to Mike Davis and John Treelor, who he knew from the CBA days. And he said, I just had to fire my operations guy because he didn't work. He was a former player that just didn't know what it took and the demands of the job. This is when staffs were 3 assistants in one other spot. And he said, I'm looking for a guy that works hard. And Coach Treelor and Coach Davis looked at him and said, we've got a guy for you. And so that's how I was able to get a job in coaching. And, for whatever reason, the stars were aligned, and I fell into that spot and I learned a lot. But yeah, that was the group that came up here, and we put our stamp on Indianapolis that year at the Final Four.
Coach, we'll go straight in front of me, 4 rows on the aisle.
Hey, Dusty. Evan Miyakawa, Mia.com. If you look at the teams in this year's Final Four, there's a lot less reliance, generally speaking, on returning players compared to last year, certainly in years past. Do you still think that the retention is important in this day and age? And what has kind of been your approach to know that you're finding the right guys who will make your group work, even if you don't have as much returning talent as maybe it would be typical for teams in this spot several years ago?
Well, I have a whole different perspective on the retention piece, and I'll be as quickly as I can with this answer. If you're retaining the right guys, yes, you have to retain the right guys, and I think that's a big part of our success. The guys that we retained earned the trust of our new guys immediately because they wanted to win. There was no hidden agendas. They were all about the team. They taught all of our unwritten rules. They expressed how much Michigan had meant to them and what this place can do for all of us after we're done playing. So there's my stance on retention. We brought back our entire team after the Final Four run at FAU, and it was the hardest coaching job, the most difficult year of my life as an assistant, as a video coordinator, as a head coach. That was the most difficult year for a number of reasons. And so that year, it would have been much healthier for the group if we didn't retain everyone. Because when you look at college basketball, Trey Carroll was an all-Big East player that didn't get a play. Brennan Lorient was a big-time player at West Virginia that didn't get a play. Nick Boyd was injured and was playing behind Jalen Gaffney and B.J. Greenlee. So we had these guys that were Power 5 starters that weren't able to play in games. And so it was difficult on everyone. And so that was a nice segue into this high major Power 5 stuff because we had all of the high major problems in a minor scale, but they were all there. And so we were forced to deal with that stuff before. So when you talk about retention is not always good. It's retaining the right guys and making sure they still have the same agenda and objectives, which is to win and do it together.
Okay, Coach, we'll go over here on our right-hand side. Got run right up in here. There we go. Right up. One more row. There you go.
Dusty, Andrew Kahn, MLive.com. What can you say about what happened to Elliott yesterday with his allergic reaction and how he was, and what can you say about the fact that he still made it with the team here?
Very unfortunate for him to have to go through that. If it's the worst thing that happens to us, then we're very blessed. And it also it shows him how much he means to his teammates. They're very concerned, obviously, like we all would be for a reaction like that. But just grateful that he's fine. We have great medical care, and he's back with us. And dude's a warrior. He'll be fine.
We'll go right up here in front, the second row.
Hey, Coach. Chris Brown, KC Cat Sports. Arizona starts 3 freshmen in Braden Burdy, Stuart Pete, and Ivan Karchenkov that are obviously playing above their years just in terms of their experience and getting here. Just, you have a couple more days to prepare for them, but what do you make of those three so far this year preparing for Arizona?
Well, first of all, if you played in the EuroLeague, you are not a freshman. So that let's knock Karchenko off of that list. And I always said, I don't say always said like the prophet, when we were at Florida, we used to talk about how there are certain prerequisites to be able to play as a freshman at the Power 5 level. And one of those few prerequisites was playing USA basketball because of the amount of intensity that it takes to compete during the trials, during the practices, and also the games, and then also the sacrifice that it takes because you're playing with 11 of the best players in our country, and you have to sacrifice so much just to play. So you know what it means to play team ball and put something above yourself. And so when you look at Burries and Koa Pete, I think both of those guys have multi-year national team experience, Team USA experience, like Merez Johnson. Trey McKinney has 1 year for us. But I think that experience allows those guys to be much more advanced than the typical high school player. And then now, and some guys are older, some guys are younger. But those guys, and I guess DNA factors into it, those guys don't look like freshmen.
We have time for a couple more. We'll start in front and near the back.
Sam Fetterman, Mid-Major Madness coach. Obviously, you mentioned that it kind of feels different this time than last time with FAU. Could you kind of expand on that? Like, what are the biggest differences, and have those differences made you kind of change your process a little bit for this year and with this team to make it back to this spot?
Well, the Monday last year, I think we advanced on Sunday. So the Monday last year, I spent the entire day talking to other coaches that had played in the Final Four about what to do and what not to do and how to prepare. And so the first day is simply learning, because we obviously didn't anticipate going to the Final Four. And so you're learning that. And this year, it was more of our staff getting together and going through our notes and checklist about what we didn't do well and what we did. And try to recreate what we did well and try to figure out a better way for what we didn't. And so I think we're a step ahead there. And as far as it feeling different, I mean, I challenge you to walk into our offices are arraigned at FAU, and everything about what that group did, and even just look at a picture of that group and their journeys to get there. And then this one, it's two different situations. This is just, we felt like we expected to be here. Last year, we were on the innocent climb for about 3 or 4 months, where we were just lost in the fight, battling every single day, scrapping for everything, and not knowing if you're even going to be in the tournament, let alone make it to the Final Four. So I think here we probably clinched an NCAA tournament bid after the Players Era in November. So just the entire things felt different.
Okay, we'll take one final one in the back right.
Hey, Coach. This is Kat Wright with TNT Sports. Just an hour ago, TNT Sports announced an alt cast of your game against Arizona featuring the Fab Five. What perspective do you think the Fab Five will add to the game's commentary?
Well, first of all, other than Michael Jordan, since I've been alive, I don't think there's ever been a group change the culture for the better of our sport than the Fab Five. And so number one, we're proud to represent those guys and carry the flag for the former players at the University of Michigan. People have no idea all of the great players, because there's been several different coaches and there's been different umbrellas. How many great players and how many great coaches have walked those sidelines and played on that court. So obviously the more attention on the Fab Five, the better for us as a brand and a basketball program.
Coach May, thank you for your time. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you, guys.